How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name's Rudy Luttrell.
I'm Ty.
And I'm Q.
And we are
the Mystic Mentors.
Today we're going to be talking about the Mono Green Menace. And for that discussion, we thought we'd bring on our de facto Mono Green player.
Yes, sir.
So we're going to be looking at a few proactive solutions that we can utilize and that we've discovered as a team in order to deal with this deck, which has been a problem. For those of you that keep up with the meta, you understand, or you've seen this deck in your tournaments quite a bit.
Mono green is, we're going to use the word unique here. It's Pioneer's premier ramp deck, so most of our turns consist of playing early pieces to ramp to get us into our bigger creatures, to help us find either our Planeswalker, Karn, may he be banned, or our land, Nykthos. I'd rather it not be banned.
I'd burn both.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
We have generally two different types of gameplay here. One, we can utilize our cheap and efficient creatures, our 3 mana 4/4s or 5 mana 5/6s, just to push through any force that you guys may have built up. Or we can flip a switch and turn into a combo line where we don't care if you're trying to interact with us or not through Karn and his 15 babies in my sideboard.
You can tell he's a Mono Green player because he thinks a 5 mana card is cheap and efficient.
They are when they have reach and they ramp you.
Yeah, I guess that's true, yeah. And when you can cast it on turn 3, it's pretty good.
It's all right, I think.
Yeah.
Now, talking about that sideboard, since you guys never have to sideboard, you guys have kind of a wish board, right? You guys can just wish upon a Karn and get whatever you need.
The silver bullets for every
the
every
perfect
situation.
silver bullets.
Absolutely, Karn's babies. All 15 cards in my sideboard consist of artifacts that Karn can tutor for, to which I can tutor for any specific piece to help me in whatever situation that may arise in my game.
Traditional ramp decks have existed for a very long time, but the fact that Mono Green specifically just gets a million free cards, specifically for one card, which is Karn.
Yes.
It causes so many problems.
And to add insult to injury, if the game's going well for them, which when you're running silver bullets, it often is going well for them, Karn, when you just think he's about to die, he's going to plus, and he'll just slap you with one of the artifacts that he already messed you over with.
That's another line we can go. If we get our 2 artifact vehicles, we won't have to use our other creatures to crew them. We can just plus Karn, turn them into a 4/4 or a 5/5 respectively. That still has their same text on the board.
Such a powerful interaction with vehicles. Among all the other brilliant things he does, shutting off all your opponent's artifacts too.
And that really brings us to what proactive solutions we can come to in order to attack this deck, because this deck, it has weaknesses, but they're not obvious.
So I'd like to start off with some of the solutions that are already presented that the meta is utilizing right now to beat Mono Green. One of the biggest things that they have right now is to cry internally.
Openly or internally, Rudy?
So for some of the top meta decks, the solutions have been established as things that don't just kill the creatures but exile them instead, because a lot of times the Mono Green creatures serve a double purpose. They're all in themselves 2-for-1s.
Yeah,
and some of them are 3-for-1s just because they have so many modes and so many situations where they can be useful. So we've taken to tools like Extinction Event, Necromentia to get copies of important cards like Storm and Karn and Kiora, Pithing Needle, Declaration in Stone, and cards like Ossification for the white decks. If you're on a more Aristocrats game plan, you can use cards like Furnace Rains and Claim the Firstborn to take some of their super valuable and cheap creatures and then sack them away for your own means.
Coming from someone who plays the deck relatively often, getting me off my devotion is another great way of dealing with the deck, either bouncing or, like you said, exiling any of my creatures that have death triggers. It is innocuous, where when you think of Mono Green, you're thinking either Karn or Nykthos here. Kiora is a big player in some of my bigger turns as well, so dealing with her when you got a second, when you don't think Karn's always going to be a problem, but maybe he's not as big as a problem as me getting, 16, 17, 33 mana in a turn just to, enact my combo.
So from what I've seen in tournament gameplay, I like how you highlighted the difference between the two planeswalkers, because it's going to be hard for players who haven't played against the deck a lot to identify which one they need to handle if they're both there. From my gameplay experience, it seems like if you are ahead on the board, Karn's less of a problem a lot of the time. And if Kiora is there, then you handle Kiora or kill them, one of the two, whichever happens to be available. Yeah. And if you're behind, then Karn's the bigger problem because he's just going to keep on drawing them cards of a specific silver bullet, making your situation 10 times worse.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And the fact that an early Kiora can be such a mixed messages from the deck too, because I've had games against mono green, especially earlier in the season, where they'd play a planeswalker of any kind, and I would just attack it to death, and I put 5 or 6 damage into Kiora, maybe twice in a single game, which that damage could have just killed them, but you can't tell what the game state's going to go, and so Kiora's just such a big shield for them, and it is an important piece, but identifying when to attack the planeswalkers is something that you can almost only gain with experience against the deck.
We've talked about this before, looking at your branching decisions and say if this happens, if I leave the Kiora, what happens? And if he does that actually ruin my game plan? Mono green does not reward you for having a mixed game plan or not being sure what you're actually trying to do. They're too fast and too efficient. They will absolutely destroy you if there's not a specific plan in mind that you've enacted.
Or just playing control.
Yes.
I've heard that control is just good against the deck.
It is a rough game for me to go through as well, yeah.
Yeah, they don't mind if you ramp, right? They just let you ramp into the big stuff and they just counter whatever you play.
Yeah, that's the best. Farewell is a really big card I try to look out for. It exiles everything.
So, Rudy, you talked about one of the decks, right, that can attack it blue-white control. But for the players who don't want to play blue-white control because you're like me and you're more aggressive and not impacting the game and waiting for someone else to do something is anathema to you, or for someone who just doesn't want to buy the cards for blue-white, which can be expensive, what are some better options that a more budget maybe player could look at?
Well, actually, one of the budget options or decks that I took to the most recent event where I did beat mono green was Convoke. Just any deck that goes wide enough, fast enough against them. The Pia deck, I hear, also does the same thing. It just gets enough bodies, and then you'd have 1 or 2 pump spells, and you attack, and the deck can't keep up with a turn 5 death, because it generally takes them a few turns to really set up and then have this board state that can't be beaten by most of the meta.
Yeah,
absolutely.
How do you feel about mono white aggro? Is that a pretty good deck into
mono white humans? Traditionally also has been a solution for mono green for a time, because Brave the Elements is a heck of a card.
Absolutely.
And it does the same thing that Boros Convoke or Pia does.
Yeah,
they produce a ton of bodies and then find a way to get those bodies in.
They even run 2 portable hole just to hit the early elf and just slow things down. Did I understand that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll see lists running way oversaturated sideboards for mono green specifically, which I think is a bit of a problem in and this goes to your meta share issues, is that people see mono green doing really well, they see the numbers and they get intimidated, and much like myself with Greasefang at the start of last year, they just throw every card possible just to hinder the one deck, which means they're throwing away matchups, huge matchup percentages that they can use in these tournaments solely because of one deck. That's one thing I forgot to mention, is that killing the elf is such an important and integral plan against mono green that I didn't even think to mention it. Turning them off of their efficiency is so important.
Any removal on my turn 1 elf, you guys are just forcing me to play a 3 mana 4/4 for 3 mana. On turn 3, I mean.
A criminal offense.
Yeah,
I thought so.
Paying mana for your cards is rough, for sure.
Yeah, it's hard out here in these streets.
Looking at some of our team's proactive solutions that we've come to, second verse, same as the first, play Vanishing Verse. Try it. Put it in your deck. It hits almost every relevant card in the format. The few that it doesn't, Fable it away. Play Mardu midrange. Other solutions that if you're not into black-white, you're just not into those 2 colors, there's a reason Izzet Phoenix is back. they run for Thing in the Ice because that card is a house into mono green. Funnily enough, Phoenix, not that good into mono green. Pretty awful. You'll probably side it out if you play Phoenix. But, so you'll lose your namesake card and you'll play the other namesake card and Thing in the Ice. And playing Thing in the Ice was what won me, I think, our games when we were playing at the Gathering of Gamers at the convention.
All of my options were to find pieces to get rid of Thing in the Ice.
Can't understate how important it is for the mono green player to say that he was looking for solutions.
Yes.
Because normally we have to find the solutions.
The problem's usually on our side. We usually have to deal with the problem. With Blue-Red Phoenix, especially with Thing in the Ice, you get to be the teacher, they have to be the student, they have to start making their own decisions. So, the third option is that you can also play Ship in the Night decks. Decks that just don't care about what mono green is doing. We mentioned it with the Pia deck. The Pia deck, when it's running the Runaway Steamkin, runs a very one-sided game plan. It combos off with Runaway Steamkin and can actually just tempo mono green out, which leads into our next option. If you don't feel like playing a combo deck or a deck that feels one-sided, you can also run tempo decks and just, like we talked about, bounce their creatures. You can counter their creatures. Anything to stop one of Mono Green's two-sided game plan. Because remember, they have two plans. They've got the Fair Creature plan, and they've got the Planeswalker combo plan. If you can interact with either one of these, especially early on, and slow them down, the game feels infinitely easier. It feels like instead of carrying a 2-ton car, you just brought it down to a 1-ton car. Now, it's still a heavy car, and it's still difficult, but it's a lot more manageable.
Just bringing it back at one point, combo decks do traditionally work well against mono green.
Absolutely.
Their lack of interaction for combo is
a deck that I would never
infinitesimal.
recommend anyone playing is Lotus Field. Not because it's not powerful or anything, because it is a powerful deck and it does see numbers, but it has such a high skill cap, and the deck itself just isn't fun to play, at least for me and from my perspective.
Sure. To reiterate our plans, you can run specific removal. There are certain colors that give you solid options in order to do that. You could play a form of blue-red or tempo style deck. Doesn't have to be Phoenix, but certainly tempo is a real option against mono green.
Rogues was popular for that reason.
Yes. Rogues was popular for that reason, absolutely. Although Thoughtseize did not feel good.
Yeah.
Rolling on from there. And then, of course, you can play a Ship in the Night deck, just go right on by them. And I think those are some pretty good solutions, at least from our testing. That's what's worked. All right, we talked about current solutions, and we've also talked about the different solutions that our team has come to. We encourage you to try them out. We encourage you to like, subscribe, leave a comment. Thanks for joining us, guys.